What's up everyone, Stella Chung here, and Respawn held a 5-year Apex Legends Anniversary Press Summit event that I attended and got a sneak preview of Season 20. I got to speak with Moy Parra, Animation Director, and Ashley Reed, Narrative Lead, about what they've learned over the last 5 years and what they expect for the future of Apex Legends. How do you feel about it being Apex's 5th anniversary?
We did it.
yeah. It's a mix of emotions for sure. It's super grateful that the game is going well and it's grown into what it's become. And at the same time, like a lot of things have changed from the game that we launched, even though it's a huge success, into what it's become now, a super international sort of renowned IP and stuff. So it's you treat it with a little bit more, I guess, reverence every time you go into a scene and you get to work on these characters that are loved by a lot of people. So it's changed a little bit like that, but it's been fun throughout the whole process.
I'm thinking about it in terms of, I heard once, if your game makes it 5 years, it'll make it 10 years.
There you
and
go.
I'm like, all right,
that's
let's
good
go.
news for us.
Where do you see Apex in 10 years? Another 5 years?
It's hard to say because I don't think if you asked me 5 years ago, I'd know where we would be today. I guess the dream is still running, still making Apex, still making something cool. And I guess just building on the things that we learn and building the IP, making something bigger and bigger, and just still creating content for the fans who love it.
Yeah, I think something cool about Apex is that it's provided us with a huge canvas of just a big place, a big playground that it can evolve into a number of places, right? We have a rich universe, we have a lot of characters. I think the BR is, of course, our identity, our core. But within it, as even within 5 years, the game has evolved into other modes, a lot more story into it. So I can only imagine that as time goes by, who knows what new crazy ideas designers will come up with. Who knows what new trends will come up in the gaming industry itself. It's actually part of the fun to see how it will evolve. I don't know exactly, I wish I could predict exactly where we'll be. It's more about, can this property actually stand the test of time? I think it can. I think there's a lot of vectors in which it can go. And I think we have a rich canvas in which to expand. And I think that's what makes it exciting to see where it goes.
Yeah, that's what's exciting for me too, is like knowing how big it has gotten and really how rich it is. That's something our team on the narrative side talks about quite a bit, is building up, not necessarily building out.
Absolutely.
So not like creating more just for the sake of it, but you have this rich core. Can you add layers to that? Can you build it up? Can you explore that? And there's so much of that in the Apex universe already. I'm excited to do that.
What do we want to get into? What new stories do we want to tell? Which direction do we want to go? All of that is exciting. And since it's a legend-based and a cool universe, there's a lot of different directions in which it can go. I'm excited for that.
Okay, so we're getting new voice acted scenes for this new season. What was it like getting all the voice actors back so they could recite these voice lines and do the stories? Were they in booths together kind of talking, or?
Where we could, we tried to organize that, where it was really important for the characters to be engaging each other and having conversations, talking back and forth and playing off each other. We try to get them together in the booth. Sometimes it's like more of a character talking to themselves, or it's not as critical for it to be an emotional back and forth, and then it was them by themselves. And that's consistent with what we've done pretty much every 3 months since the beginning of Apex. We always bring the actors back to do new lines, and this was part of it. This is an evolution of this sort of the dynamic system as well. Like, we've had the dynamic dialogue that we bring in where different characters will speak to each other differently. They really love that because that's the really interesting character focused stuff where they can like emote and say like, this is how I feel. And these new voice acted lines are an expansion of that and exploring what the character can be outside, like the moment to moment of the actual game.
With Season 20, we obviously see the game changing quite a bit, and there are different skill trees that we can kind of pick and choose our playstyle. We can be more passive, or we can be a little bit more aggressive. Have any of the Legends animations changed to reflect those?
Slightly. There's always a compromise with design as to in what ways are we going to reflect some of the new changes that are coming in. And it's a back and forth between them to see where we want to invest the time, what is it that needs to speak clearly to the player, making sure that something is new. More than anything, I think one of the areas that we have focused on a lot is on trying to make the game as accessible as possible. a season that is an anniversary season is usually one that brings in a whole bunch of new players. And we want to make sure that the experience for them is as sticky as possible for the people that have been here for a long time, for new people, so that they can resonate with the play, resonate with the lore, resonate with, you know, what new things we introduced to the game. Some of them do reflect in animation. A lot of them reflect on just the purity of the design and what designers want players to experience and what they want them to learn and to go into. Hopefully, all of this increases the experience of making the game more fun for players who have been for a while and for new ones.
You want to hang out here. You want to hang out
you
with
want to
these
be here.
people.
You want to be with these characters, and in any way that we can make that better for the player. Ultimately, that's the goal. Hopefully, that's what we're trying to hit here.
How big do you see Apex's Legend roster growing in terms of lore and animation? How many variations could you possibly come up with?
Oh, goodness.
That's a good question.
It's also not what I think we can answer on our own, because Apex is a design-first game, so when it comes to characters, the designs come first. What's going to fit well with the gameplay, what's going to be fun to play against, what's going to be fun to play with. So we actually don't originate those ideas. Like, we can have ideas like, you know who would be fun? It'd be fun to have a hockey player in the game. Like, we can have that, but we have to wait for something that will fit with a kit that comes by. And maybe we get a kit that's like, you know what, we haven't thought of anything like this, but let's start from scratch. Let's go. How big it can get, I think, is more contingent on the amount of design, different kits that will feel good and not feel overwhelming to understand.
It's not just adding more for the sake of growth, for the sake of adding more. In fact, anytime that we add a new legend, inevitably it's a huge challenge, because we try to make our legends as unique as possible. And there's archetypes for a number of things. Somebody always says that every story has already been told, but there's going to be only an amount that we can make only as uniquely as possible. So there's going to be areas where there are going to be some overlapping stuff, either overlapping traits or overlapping personalities or overlapping something. The more and more we grow, I feel like we're going to run into this more and more. It's a fun challenge, but it's 100% a challenge. If it's just unlimited amount, eventually we'll get into some sort of mesh that it might not be the healthiest thing for the game.
We definitely have the conversation more now than we ever did, like when it was the original 8.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There was never this is too much like this character, but this is too much like this character, and having to thread the needle so finely. I think a catalyst to the big challenge was threading the needle between Wraith and Seer. Where it's like, how to not hit either of those and still feel unique.
Yeah.
And that proves more challenging the more you add to the roster. It's a fun challenge.
It is a fun challenge.
To think about.
You speak about this being very difficult. What would you say is the most challenging aspect of keeping up with a live service game, being on the dev side? Because for me, it's finishing those battle passes.
I mean, I guess it's probably that it never stops. It's both the most challenging part and a real plus to the whole thing, because it is never ending. So you have to keep coming up with something new, something fresh, keep going. Sometimes it can, and then sometimes the work even itself gets a little overwhelming. It's like, oh, this is bigger than we thought it would be. We can't stop, there's no time. But at the same time, because you're doing those reps, you can say, oh, well, we learned something from this season. Let's immediately take advantage of it in this next one, instead of waiting 5 years on a project that you have to see to completion and then start again with your new learnings. So it takes energy and time, but it can also be like a real upside to have that.
I think it also has to do with players' expectations as well as internal expectations. We always, every single season, every single character, every single weapon, we want to make the very best possible product, right? So every single time it almost feels like we are one-upping ourselves. Again, that can be difficult, because it's difficult to maintain that exponentially. At some point, it's going to be like, we can't keep outdoing ourselves every time because there's only so much that we can go. So part of the live service, pleasure is that we get to do this a lot. We get to take immediate feedback from the community, adjust something that's not working, push something that is working well, and at the same time, there's only so many vectors that you can do without painting yourself into a corner. So it's a very delicate balance that you wanna hit.
What do you feel like you guys have done the best in the last 5 years of helping create and develop Apex?
I think it's a multi-layered answer. Apex was hit with a very surprise. I mean, when we set out to make this game, of course, we went into it with the absolute best intention. But people would be lying if they said, of course, we expected it to be this huge. There's no way. That day that A launched, it was an absolute mayhem. Everybody was popping bottles. It was awesome, right? And then we immediately were hit with the challenge of, cool, now what? Now we need to feed this beast. I think something that we have done well is, even though we were hit with an immediate success, which is, it's a good challenge to have. Not too long after that, we were hit with COVID, and then we were hit with the rapid expansion of a team in order to support this game. So honestly, the fact that we were able to combine growing, going through the pandemic, changing course into now almost fully remote, it's a testament of how good that first core design was, and just the initial DNA of the game that made it able to withstand all of these potential challenges and difficulties that happened. And now it's a matter of, where do we want to take this? How do we expand this? We have a really good base, we have a really good core, we have a lot of players that love our game, enjoy, connect with our characters.
I feel like the team has done a really good job. I guess the good way to summarize would be keeping our eye on the prize.
Sure.
Like, we know what about the game, we know what the core of the game is, we know what, based on both data and just by instinct, we know the gameplay, the game feel are a huge deal for Apex, and we know the characters are a huge deal for Apex. And there are times where we've experimented and gone different ways, but we always come back to center. There are times where maybe that wasn't the best way we could have done that, because we are experimenting, but we always keep sight of, this is the important thing and this is what we want people to experience. So that's stayed pretty consistent throughout Apex, which I think was a really strong move on the team's part. And also just being collaborative and being respectful of each other's talents and like what everyone brings. Because I've been on projects where some groups are like, nah, we know what we're doing, like ignore everybody else. We're gonna be over here doing our thing and no one else can touch it, and there you go, make that work. There's a lot of curiosity within the team about what other kinds of disciplines are doing, even if we don't understand it. I like talking to coders and system designers, even though that's
for sure
so far beyond what I do. If I understand it, then I understand the game better, and I understand them better as professionals and the challenges they face. And I think that respect for each other's like professional skills and just creativity and knowledge, that's been maintained through the team, which I really appreciate.
Would you say that the future of Apex is very bright still, even after 5 years?
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm really excited to keep going. We got lots of plans, and there's still a lot to try and a lot
There's
to
a lot
learn.
of plans. I wish we could say more, right? There's a lot of really exciting plans. There's a lot of stuff that coming in the immediate future. There's a lot of stuff that is coming further down the line. But there's a lot of stuff that I think the team is very excited about. I'm personally super excited about. I know Narrative is excited. We work on this together a lot. So I guess we get to see a little bit further away than some of the other teams. But there's a lot of fun stuff.
I mentioned to someone yesterday, they're like, what are you personally working on? I'm like, well, I kind of oversee things, but like, I've got my hands in something that's coming out at the end of this year.
Yeah,
That's how far, and I'm really
Absolutely.
excited about it. So that's how far we're looking.
So you would say season 20 is kind of only the beginning.
Absolutely.
Ah, nice.
Yeah. It's a very exciting season, but it's definitely the beginning of something quite cool. Quite cool.
We got some fun little hints in season 20 of what you'll see coming next. So let's see if
Tasty.
people can spot them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, you ready for another round, shooter?
Start a fight, start a